I was going to church before I could even say the word church. Went to St. Anne's, did my 8 years of school there. I remember making my first communion, confirmation. I remember learning my Hail Marys, my Our Fathers, and I would love to say that I got it. Since I've been coming to First Baptist Church, I see a lot of young people who get it and walk up front and get baptized. But for me, that wasn't the case. But I also noticed as I got older, going to church was not on my priorities list. In fact, it was anything but. We have Saturday night mass, and when I got to driving, well, Mom, I'm going to church, and needless to say, I was anywhere but at church. Me and my friends, we found better things to do than to learn and study about God. And I remember the Father Pirtle coming to our 6th grade class teaching the New Testament. I can tell you what color the New Testament was that we studied from, but I couldn't tell you anything I learned. And I met Andrea. And when we were dating, we were at her dad's house one time, and there was a guy come by to see her dad, and he was a Baptist preacher. And before I got away from that man, I wanted to throw him through a door. Basically, he, in so many words, told me I was going to hell because I was Catholic. And didn't matter what my heart was. And, and that bothered me a lot. Later on down the road, me and Andrew got married, and I still attended St. Anne's. She found First Baptist Church. And I don't know how or why she did, and I'm very thankful that she did, because some things that happened really kind of changed my life. And I was sitting in a pew over there where Damon Moore's sitting now. And I'm almost positive if it wasn't for Andrea singing, I wouldn't have came that day. Brother Mark was giving a sermon. He might as well put Jim's story on it. Might as well, because I remember the tears running down my face, and I can't even tell you what he preached about, but I remember my feelings that day. And I remember the sun coming through that stained glass window and shining on my face. When he did that invitation that day, I wanted so badly to go up there. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it because of the position I held with my job. I was a police officer then. Police officers supposed to have the higher moral ground, supposed to be perfect, and walking up there would cause me to admit, Jim, you ain't perfect. You're a sinner like everybody else. It was tough. I couldn't let go of that pew. And I had a friend not too long after that asked me where I was going to church, and I said, Morganfield First Baptist is where I'm starting to go now. We had kids then, and I really wasn't going to church for me, but I was going as a family, because that's what you're supposed to do as Christians. You go to church as a family. And he made a joke, and he said, you're going to hell because you're Baptist, and I'm like, I can't win for losing. And I even though he said it in a joking manner, I always know that some jokes, there's a lot of truth when somebody says something when they're joking. And I knew, even though he said he was joking, he really believed that, or I felt like he believed it. So I'm struggling with getting any relationship with God, or even having a relationship with church members and all. I still, deer season come around, goose season, or if it's raining hard enough, unless Andrew was singing, I wasn't going to be there. And then one day, and I'm going to try not to make this about Cursillo, but it's a big part of my life. And Steve Arnett come to me, and I was at the sheriff's office then, and he come in and said, "Hey, would you like to go to this thing?" And I'm going to tell you, the devil put so many thoughts in my head that I'm like, I ain't going to one of those things. You're going to be up there, I'm going to be doing this all weekend and going to have a robe. It's just, I told myself everything. I'm like, no, Steve, I ain't interested. And then I got to thinking about it, and I'm like, oh my, I said, Andrea wants to go. And run back out on the street, told him I'd go. And surely I can endure 4 days for my wife. Even though I don't want to be there, I'll go for her. That first night there, they have a little meditation session, and they want you to think about why you're here. And I know why I was here. I'm here just because of my wife. I've got no desire to be here, and probably should have never even been asked to go. But I guess Lord had a little bit of mercy on me, and I did find enough courage to come back make that profession of faith and be baptized that year. But I didn't let go. You know, when you surrender your heart to God, you're supposed to surrender all. And I didn't do that. I started reading the Bible, and because I'm interested. I want to know God. I still don't have a relationship with God, and there's pieces missing. And it's never been, for me, it's never been about not believing Jesus walked the earth. It's never been about not believing that Jesus died for our sins and was crucified. You know, I believe atheists believe this, you know, but I never had a connection with God. I never felt that He was real. I come back and I started trying to read the Bible, and I had a King James version, and I remember I couldn't read it. And another mistake I made, I tried to read it like a novel. Like I started from the front page and I'm going to read it all the way through like a J.K. Rowling's book. I don't know. But I made it through, almost through Genesis before I quit. And I went and talked to Brother Mark and said, I can't read this. And so he gave me an easier version of the Bible to read. And I put it in my police car, and every time I got a break or I'm sitting running the radar, I'd take some time to read. But I made the same mistake. I started from the beginning, and when it got to so-and-so is the father so-and-so and the father so-and-so, I'm just going to tell you, my reading just pretty much dried up. And in fact, I was driving to Paducah one time to pick up a juvenile and bring him back for court, and we got all the stuff where he left his Bible, and he said, hey, we got to turn around. I got to go get my Bible. I'm like, we're an hour and a half, almost back to Morganfield. I said, we can't turn back. I said, I'll tell you what, I've got this Bible right here. I'm going to let you have it. And I gave it to him. I gave away anything and everything I needed to understand God and what He wanted for us. And that desire I had after being baptized to get closer to God slowly dwindled away. Went back the way I was before. 2011, I don't know if y'all know Pat Donahue. He became the rector of the next weekend. And for some reason, I felt like I needed to be on his team. And not for God, not to help men find a relationship with God. I just want to pay back some kindness that he showed me on my first weekend. So he let me on his team. And I will tell you, for me, things changed a lot that weekend. You know, when you're on one of those teams, they have different jobs for you to do. And lucky for me, I was a shepherd, and I got to be in the conference room the whole weekend, which basically means I got to listen to all the talks again. I might as well be in what they call one of the pilgrims going through. I cried as much as those guys did, and God was just so powerful on that weekend. And that Saturday night, we take everybody up to church, and there's an opportunity for them to go to the altar and just lay down all these baggage they got. And I'm sitting back here trying to stay back because, you know, we want all these guys that are coming through that we're helping to go first, you know. And I couldn't stand it. And I finally got up there and was kneeling at that altar and crying, and I had all this stuff built up, and finally told God in a prayer that I needed Him. And at that very instant, and I didn't hear the guy walking up behind me, he put his hand on my shoulder, and the hairs just stood up on the back of my neck. And I knew God just touched me on that shoulder. And in his prayer, he's praying that everything's going to be all right. I'm here, you know, and I felt God speaking through him. And for the first time in my entire life, I knew God was real. And I would like to say that, hey, everything got easier as my Christian walk went on, but it didn't. But the one thing I did know, I knew God was real. And for all those years going through Catholic school and saying prayers, I felt like I was just talking to a wall and nobody was there. And this was the first time I ever said prayers that I knew and I felt God being with me, and He was listening. The first time He did something that scared the daylights out of me, that following year, October 2011, we were having nominations for deacons, and Heidi Peller come up to me after church, and I didn't know Heidi. I've seen her in church. I don't know if she didn't know me. I didn't know her, and she says, you know, I've been seeing something different in you, and I nominated you for deacon, but I had to write down what you were wearing because I didn't know your name. I went home, told Andrew about it because I didn't want to talk about it driving because I knew what was going to happen. I was going to bust down in tears, and I'm like, you tell me that God has touched me, and everybody on the outside can see the changes in me. I felt them on the inside, but I honestly, truly didn't think anybody could see on the outside. You know, and at the time I was still struggling somewhat with forgiveness. And, you know, when you give it to God, you know, I can forgive anybody except myself. And I struggle with that too. And we had that spring, we had a outdoor church service, and a friend of mine that I grew up with in high school, we got a big fight in middle school. In fact, he knocked me plumb out in front of everybody. I mean, you talk about embarrassing, and truly, how do you forgive somebody for doing that? But when the girl got out of the picture, and we got into high school, we became friends again. But he came to our outdoor service, and I remember cooking the hot dogs and hamburgers today, and when it was over, he came over, he said, "Jim, I got to talk to you." And he said, "You know, I had an accident at work, and it almost killed me." And he said, "I've had this come to Jesus moment." And he said, "I really need to tell you, I'm sorry." Now, we've been friends after that, and honestly, I never gave it another thought, never crossed my mind. And I got home, and the more I thought about it, I mean, it just, this weight come off of me. But it was the first time I realized how Jesus can teach us how to forgive, and the importance of it in our lives, and how important it is for others. Because honestly, I didn't need him to ask me for forgiveness. I done forgot about it, and it was over with. But you know, of course, I couldn't say, "No, you're not forgiven." I was shocked that he even remembered that happened. But there's so many stories I could share. You know, I had a guy ask me for a bunch of money one time to help him out, and I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and I'm start praying. I'm like, how am I going to do this? Where's God going to help me find this money to give him? And the next time I saw him, I was trying to avoid him, and he caught me. He said, "Jim, you do not believe this. You won't believe this. You can't believe this." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Somebody talking about all my house payments up." You know, and so finally I'm like, God's listening to prayers. He's not answering prayers the way I'm looking. I'm thinking, figure out how I can pay this for him, you know, and instead he's doing something totally different. And, you know, the first time I remember praying out loud, and I was caught off guard, I was asked to pray for a guy before he gave his talk, and I'd never prayed out loud before. And it was like throwing a hand grenade in a room, because there was no escape. I couldn't say no, because I felt like I owed the man something, but it was terrifying. And I don't remember what I said. I don't remember anything. And when he came up, he said, "I really appreciated you. You know, that was an awesome prayer." And I don't even remember the words I said. And so I know God had to take over, because I didn't remember anything. And the first time I gave my testimony in church, the peace that I got when I walked up there was like a blanket just wrapped all over me. And again, God took over and did what He needed me to do. And Andrew's like, "Where'd that come from?" I'm like, "I don't know. It wasn't me." So I don't mean this to sound like an invite to Cursillo, but I do think if God is speaking to you, let him have a piece of you, and then let him have a little bit more. I certainly didn't jump in both feet at the same time like a lot of people do. It's been a process for me, and I know how He continues to use me. The first time I ever prayed, He said, "Give me somebody to talk to." It happened at school when I was in Job Corps, and I keep a little sticky note on my computer then that said, "Pray before you start." 3 o'clock that afternoon, one of my students came up to me and sat down at my desk, and he said, "You're a Christian, right?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "We need to talk." And those hairs on the back of your neck start standing up, because, you asked for it, you got it, Jim. All the time, I try to challenge myself, like this gospel to every home. This is going to be a challenge for me. We signed up for a street and didn't realize how many people I was going to know on this street. Going out and telling them about my Jesus and how He changed my life might be a little bit of a struggle. Might not. It might come easier than I think, but I'm going to find out. I love talking about what Jesus has done in my life. I think He can make a difference in you if you haven't let go and you haven't had that opportunity to let Jesus work in you. I challenge you to do it today. Find that courage to walk up front and let everybody know that, hey, I believe Jesus is alive and well and doing something in my life. But that's my story, and I guess I'm going to stick to it.